Derek, why is it important for a fresh grad to market themselves online, especially when it comes to applying for a job and getting a good pay?
Well, I think uh, as we all know currently, whenever, even when we go out, when we look for a place to eat or look for something to do, the first thing everyone does is sort of Google it. And
Yes.
yeah, right. That's like your automatic natural thing, that you do.
Google
And
is my boyfriend who knows
yeah,
everything.
they do too much. But and
Yes.
yeah, so when employers, when they're typically going through the recruitment process, not every employer does this, but many of them have started to do it, right? They just Google you just to sort of get a sense, of like who you are, etc.
Right.
You can look at it as a very, very informal sort of reference check. And so understanding this means that a lot of people should really pay attention to, I guess, how they're portraying themselves online. Right.
Right.
So yeah. And one of things I would first, so before even thinking about how you want to market yourself, you might first want to think about just in the reverse, like at the very least, don't put anything online that that you think might risk you damaging your career, as an example, right? So you
Whoops,
should
that's me done
assume.
then.
Well, I mean, depends on who your personality online is. If you're positioning yourself as I'm a super authentic, direct person, that's absolutely fine.
Right.
But if you're an employee, and corporations have a lot of rules regarding like how they represent themselves. So you just have to assume that whatever you put online, someone's going to see it one day. So just don't post something you regret, basically.
Okay, so basically it's sort of the idea is to cultivate an authentic uh version of yourself that you'd like other people to have the perception of.
Well, cultivate an authentic version of yourself, but that's also not going to damage your the impression of someone on you. Let's say if you're interested to work in a corporate company, so there are
Right.
certain rules that corporations have, and as long as if you post, maybe think of it in this way: if you don't have an issue saying this to the face of someone who's working in a corporation, or saying it when you're actually working, then you don't have an issue posting it online. That's putting it away.
Right. Filter in place. Can I say this in front of my boss or my supervisor? Yes, no, maybe. And then go ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah.
So, what are some of the online tools that fresh grads should take advantage of in today's very demanding workers market?
Yeah. So, well, there are a few. So, when it comes to say marketing yourself, for example, I think LinkedIn is a great tool. So you could have like a proper profile there. Have a good professional bio of yourself, and post things that reflect you as a professional, right? So
Right.
LinkedIn is great to do that.
Mm.
If you're using online tools to sort of research, I suppose, which company you'd be interested to apply in, you could also use LinkedIn. You could use Glassdoor. You could use Wob, which is the company that I'm running. So it helps you focus on information about different cultures of companies. So it works both ways, right? Because you're researching them because you're trying to decide if you want to apply in the first place. And also, if you do apply, the research helps you prepare, right? Prepare for the interview, prepare,
Got it.
to focus your time, attention on what you believe is important to the company. And then it helps you do that, right?
I suppose it helps you answer the questions as well that you might be given, right? Because a lot of people I know I think we've all had interviews where we've gone in and they've asked us what we think about the company or the company culture. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't
and
know. Yeah.
that's right. So you want to go beyond just the company's website, because very often the company's website might be designed by corporate comms or their marketing team, etc. Right? So you want to look for different channels or avenues to figure out what's really going on here in this company, and so it helps you anticipate the questions that they might ask you also.
So a bit of professional stalking.
Yeah. I I guess you could say that.
Okay.
In the same way that they're checking you out, like you're also checking them out, right? So it's like a two-way thing. But apart from just marketing yourself or researching the company, there are also lots of online tools you can use to upskill yourself. Because I think right now the pace of change, right, is so rapid. But the good news is there's lots of platforms online such as LinkedIn Learning, Skillshare, Udemy, even YouTube. I use YouTube a lot
Yeah,
for
me too.
learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
If I need to figure something out, it's like if I don't know how to do something, it's like, oh, I'll YouTube it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. And you get like a really consumable, bite-sized 2-3 minute video that teaches you a skill you can use immediately. So really take advantage of that. I think there's a lot of free content online that helps you learn and upskill. One of the things I tell people all the time is a lot of knowledge is free these days, either free or like not very expensive to sort of acquire. So it's mostly just your motivation in trying to acquire these skills, right? If you wanted to, you could probably find a way to learn it online pretty easily. So yeah.
So, Derek, what do employers look for when it comes to scanning through resumes?
Oh, that is a very good question, because I've read somewhere before they said that they take like 6 seconds or something like that, right, to make a decision. I'm
Crazy.
not sure if it's really that fast, but I think the point is that writing a 10-page resume is not going to help you.
No, I
So
can
yeah,
imagine.
so one page is fine, and I can describe how I look at resumes, and I imagine that's what most recruiters would do. So the first thing is they're trying to see what you're doing now. That's the first question here. Like, who am I looking at? What are they doing? So is this like an accountant that's working in some multinational company? Am I looking at a salesperson that's working in a startup? They're just trying to. So question number one, what are you doing now? So that has to be like pretty clear. And they're also scanning. The next thing they're also scanning for is like any notable achievements or any recognizable brands that you work for that make your CV pop or stand out. So, if you work for a branded corporation or you've done work for a branded corporation, that might help. Or if they can see that you've been promoted multiple times in your company, that might help. So they're actually kind of scanning the CV to look for this. And the third thing most recruiters look for, assuming you've had a number of years of experience, they're also trying to see, how long you've stayed at companies, whether you've changed jobs every 3 months, every 4 months. So those are typical sort of potential red flags. Or if you stay at a company like 2 years, 3 years, okay, and you've been promoted there. So they're sort of looking for this to get a sense of who you are before they pick up the phone and invite you for an interview.
So, for those who perhaps have got very legitimate reasons why they've perhaps bunny hopped different companies in short succession, and or have been out of work, say for a year or two, maybe there's been illness or having a baby or whatever it is that's caused that sort of gap. What would be your advice in sort of explaining that gap, or could have would it even work highlighting that gap first, so that it's something that they, people like you who are looking through it, look at and understand a little bit more about the person that way? What would you advise?
Yeah, I think the first thing is don't worry too much if you have had short stints, as long as you've had at least one or two fairly reasonable length ones. So give you a simple example. If someone has never held a job for say 1 to 2 years at least, and everything's very short, then that might trigger a very red flag. But if they had held a job for a certain period of time, then the first assumption was, okay, so this person can obviously, they can stay long in jobs, they can get their job done, but maybe they really picked the company that doesn't fit them, or something happened in their life, right? So I think that's completely okay. And when you get invited for the interview, just make sure that the answer to that question, because they might ask,
You had that
right?
answer ready and it sounds
Yes, that's
good.
right.
Okay.
Yes, it must be very reasonable, and try to hear it from the interviewer's point of view. Very, very often, a lot of people sometimes describe their answers from their point of view, but try to hear it back. Imagine what the interviewer would hear when they hear what you're saying, right? So if it sounds like if you're sharing something that's, I suppose, unavoidable,
Mhm.
but you sort of took a very professional and a mature approach to it, most of the time, these answers are very acceptable, right, to the interviewer.
So would it be fair to say your meaning state facts, don't tell a story?
That's right. And also share your thought process in arriving at that decision.
Right.
Yeah. So say, for example, when you say that, say someone had to take a break to take care of their family, right? Which I hear quite often. Let's say someone gets ill or something. So they can say, look, I've stayed in this job for 3 years, and then I moved to a new job. I've stayed there for 6 months. And it just so happened that, my mom or my dad got ill. And at the time, I tried to make it work, but it was really difficult because they needed someone full-time. And we sort of arrived at the decision that it probably makes sense for me to quit my job and take care of the parent than getting outside help. So I did that, right? So that kind of story kind of really makes sense to me. And then now that they're feeling better, I'm sort of ready to come back into the workforce,
Right.
Yeah.
You make it sound so simple. Okay, so talking about sort of the resumes and how people scan through them, what they're looking for, how important are aesthetics compared to the actual content in the resume?
Yeah, one of the things I have seen like really fancy CVs before. I think on one hand, I believe the person preparing the CV is thinking I'm showing initiative, which is fine.
Does it make you
Which is great.
chuckle?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely better than, people that just download off a template from a very boring template that everyone's seen before. So it's better than that. But the one thing I will suggest is just make sure that the design doesn't overshadow the content, because at the end of the day, your design is supposed to emphasize the important parts of your CV, make it stand out, make it very easy to read.
Right.
So I would always lean for a very clean and professional kind of design that helps you emphasize on the key things that you want the interviewer to see. Because they scan CVs, right? So you want them to see those things very clearly rather than being distracted by, oh, look at this yellow balloon here at the corner of the CV,
You've had
Look
a
at
yellow
this.
balloon on the corner of a CV before,
I've
have you?
seen definitely very colorful CVs. I've seen images of people say standing beside like very colorful roses, and it's like, it just is distracting, right?
Right.
Yeah. So but I have to say though, it does depend on your profession. So what I mean by that is, if you're applying for a job in the creative industry or in design, then this how you creatively design your CV will obviously leave an impression on you in terms of your work. But for most other jobs, and if you're applying to be an accountant, for example, like don't overdo the design part. Just make sure it's very easy to read and looks very professional.
Yes, because I suppose the most important thing is getting your information across.
That's right. Yeah.
And a fancy CV doesn't hide an empty resume, is what you're saying.
That's right. That's right. And again, it's better than a boring, template kind of CV. But yeah, don't overdo it if it doesn't help.
For a fresh grad, their resumes might seem like there's nothing much other than their academic achievements. So how can you be spotted and receive a pay that's acceptable in today's climate?
Yeah, this is a challenging one. I think I'll start with for fresh graduates. For fresh graduates, pay, right? Most organizations, they have pretty standard pay for fresh grads. So meaning like if company A pays 3,000 for fresh grad, everyone that starts as a fresh grad starts at 3,000. If company B pays say 2,200 ringgit, then everyone starts at 2,200 ringgit. So there may be not a lot of space to negotiate on fresh graduate pay. So it's sort of, so the most important question is, what kind of company are you applying to, right, or applying for, that determines your fresh grad pay. And there needs to be a balance. I tell this a lot to a lot of fresh graduates. So there needs to be a balance between getting a good high pay for fresh graduate and also long-term prospects, right? So there are some jobs out there that do pay above market, I think, for fresh graduate, but I don't see that there's a lot of potential for growth, right? There's sort of, you can see like the dead end coming in 2-3 years, and it doesn't really progress too much. Whereas there are also the reverse, right? There are some jobs that maybe don't pay. They pay market rate or slightly lower, but you can see like the really long-term prospects, right? So if you can afford it, I always tell people that obviously you take the second option, right? Something that works better long term, because that is future earning. So you don't earn it now, but potential for much higher future earning. Now, if a company has both, they pay well now and there's great prospects, and obviously that's a no-brainer. Like you should
That's the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
Yeah, so it's rare, but if you see that, then you should actually take this. I think the kind of companies or industries right now that I like, the very obvious ones that a lot of people see that, obviously has a lot of potential. Companies that are sort of doing business in the digital world, if you like, right? So if you're thinking about I want to have a CV that has like really good long-term prospects, you could consider having elements of this in your CV, right? That show that you understand the digital world or the digital space. It could be that you could go intern in a startup, a tech startup, right? So maybe you don't want to work in a startup, maybe you want to work in a big corporation, but doing an internship in a technology startup might help. And also go online and get certified on like certain digital skills to help prop up your CV when you don't have a lot of experience.
Right. I suppose if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying sort of like you may not have the skills yet that they need, but one way for them to see maybe that you're an investment worth having, right, is to show for you to be able to demonstrate in some way that you either understand the sort of the line or procession of how they may see when you in that role, once you actually join the company, and your understanding of the company in terms of the sort of upskilling you're doing on the side.
That's right. It shows the effort and how committed you are to it, rather than the answer I hear sometimes when I interview someone is, if you hire me and train me, I'll learn it. So sure, I couldn't hire you and train you, but I have a second person that's trained themselves. So I think I'm going to bet on that second person, right? Because I'm still going to train that second person, but they're sort of half a step ahead already, and I know that they're committed to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I suppose what you're saying is like, what's your big picture? If a fresh grad, it's all about the money, then good luck to you. Like, go and choose the one that has the highest starting salary. But if your big picture is, I really want to get started in my career and this is where I want to go, then it's taking a closer look at the companies that you're applying for or are offering the position. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I also want to be a bit careful with that in terms of saying that fresh graduates should opt for lower salary for higher prospects. More in the sense of it may not be I use the word privilege that some people can afford. Like they've got bills to pay for, people to take care of, so they have to choose a job that pays a bit higher just so they can afford these things. So those are, which is why I say that if you can afford it, then that's definitely the better option, right? Like just take a lower salary and think long term.
Right.
Yeah.
Just wondering, like, if the salaries are all stuck at sort of whatever ceiling they are for entry level, like, is there any other way a fresh grad could gain some extra traction, like with, I don't know, petrol money or toll money, or I don't know, allowances somehow? Like, is there some kind of backdoor way that you could actually, for want of a better word, milk the company a little bit so that you actually offset what you're getting? That may sound so rude, but I'm sure many are wondering the same.
That's a very interesting question. I think if you're in a sales job, then it will just come with commission. So for some people that need you need money fast. I've had sales people that are in very early careers, and I'm talking about say 1-2 years experience, that can pull in like 5-figure a month salaries. Yeah. So they're just very good in sales. So sales is one of those jobs where you can get paid a lot because you get paid on your results basically, which is the sale, right? And you get commissioned on your results. For most other jobs, unfortunately, I don't think that's
No.
I don't think that's an easy way to like scam your company or push them to pay you a bit more.
I didn't use the word scam. You did. Okay.
Or indirectly or cleverly find more ways to pay yourself. But I think one thing you could try though is that you could try to. So some companies don't automatically structure growth for you. So you should open that conversation with your employer, but open it in, so this is the right way. Okay. The wrong way to open the conversation could be just like, when are you going to promote me? I want to get promoted.
Right.
So, so that's the wrong way, because employees get put off by that. I think the right way to ask the question is, okay, I'm interested to grow. Can you tell me what you need to see from me, as an employee, for you to know that I'm ready to be promoted, right? What would you like to see from me? What kind of attitudes or results you want to see from me? And then once it actually forces the employer to put down on a piece of paper, right, what they want to see, right? And when they do that, you sort of getting some kind of commitment from them to also say that if I give you this, you're going to promote me, right? So I think that's a better way to ask. And I think employers won't really mind. Well, at least I don't mind, because for me, it's a sign that someone's ambitious and driven, and that's what we really want, right? And they're not just blindly ambitious. They're very mature in the sense where they understand that in order to grow, I also need to show results. So I'm going to ask you now what you want to see from me, right? So it's like a two-way thing.
So what's your advice to fresh grads who are expecting to make a lot more money than their experience allows them?
What is my advice for fresh grads who want to make a lot more money than their experience allows them? I think other than being in your job, I know that there is a trend to have like side hustles. I think you could definitely consider that if you can afford the time. But in terms of side hustles, I'm on the fence on this, in the sense where I always think that if you can focus on one thing really, really well and do really, really well on this one thing, then you can have like exponential growth, right? Whereas a side hustle can end up being a distraction, even though there's short-term money. So what you want to do is, if you do want to have a side hustle to have the extra income, just make sure that whatever you're doing, the side hustle aligns with maybe your main job or your long-term goal. So it's not just a way to make money, you're also learning something that helps you long-term. So those are the things to consider. So what I mean by that,
what would be, I was going to ask you, what's a good example of that?
So say that if you are, maybe I give an example that's not so good first, right? So if your main job is like, I'll use the accountant example, because I used to be an accountant.
They're getting thrown under the bus. Oh, you used to be one. Okay, great.
Yeah, I used to be one. So I was just accountant. So if you're doing a job as an accountant, and then on the side you are doing something regarding digital marketing, for example, but you have no real interest in pursuing digital marketing as a long-term career, then that's not a great strategy, right? So here's what's a good example. So if you're in a working a full-time job, or you're an accountant, and you do actually want to start your own business one day, and you have an idea what's this business that you want to start, then do that as a side hustle, with the view that one day the side hustle will be the main hustle, right?
So your 80% is your day job, your 20% is your side hustle, kind of like that's sort of what the meal is at the moment. And then, like, for example, are you saying, like, even if you're with the accountant and you wanted to set up your own business, what would make sense is actually you may be doing something in the digital sphere that was about accounting 101 for plebs like Asha who don't know how to do their accounts, so that someone like me can go, oh, that's like 7 ringgit. I can buy that. And this guy's going to teach me how to do it. So like that's an alignment with actually kind of what he's doing, and no brainer, and doesn't detract him from the job he's doing. And also may seem quite interesting to his employers as well. Like, is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, that's right. So even the employer say, oh, you're actually doing this on the side, and and I can see that you're actually growing a skill that's also valuable to us as an employer. So I don't mind that you're doing it, right? In fact, I want you to do well, so that one day, when you grow in this company, I know that you have these digital skills as well that benefit yourself and the company. So Yeah, so that's a very good example. Much better than mine, actually, Asha. So
Thanks. You can use it for future.
I will.
It'll cost you 7 ringgit. Okay, Derek, being a parent myself, are you a parent?
I am. I
Okay.
have two daughters. Yes.
Okay, so what can parents do to prepare their adult child before they go out into the working world?
Well, one of the things, like we all know that education doesn't quite prepare you for it. So I think it's a very good question. Yeah.
I have no comment.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do well in school.
Me neither.
But
I was always in detention.
right. Okay. So one of the so now I think for the current people going from education to school, they face two challenges. Not only does education not prepare them enough for the working world, I think social media and it's not very helpful in the sense where you see a lot of great stories of amazing employers who are so inspirational and all that, right? And you have this in your mind going into your first job, and then when you go into your first job, the reality is like work is work, so and even you will find that even companies with a great inspirational story have parts of them that kind of suck, right? It's not that great,
Right, because that's
yes.
life.
That's
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 normal.
life. That's
Yeah.
right. When you work with very big groups of people, that might be some politics, and sometimes your boss might say something harsh to you,
Right.
and it happens, right? So I think what parents can actually do is to kind of tell their kids like, hey, look, now you're going to enter the world, and it's going to be tough, right? So you should expect parts of your job that you may not like. You should expect that sometimes your boss might say something tough to you or really harsh to you. You should expect that there might be colleagues that you don't like, right? So what your main when you change that expectation, I think it helps people approach it in a much more mature way, right? And just tell them like what you need to do right now is knowing that you're going to face this, like commit to working hard at this, do very well despite all these challenges, right? Don't give up as soon as as you see you see a hurdle and you say, hey, I read this article online and this company is so amazing, but my company sucks, right? So but
Yeah, right. That
yeah.
compare and contrast disease that's
Yeah,
happening.
and you will find that things online, I'm not saying that it's not true, but it's most of the time just half the story, right? So every company has issues.
Right. So do you think that this conversation parents should be having earlier than just when their kids are about to step into the real world?
Yeah,
Because there
so
is this sense of entitlement that people are talking about in terms of like, I want that job, but I don't want it bad enough to be paid like $400 less than what I was expecting. It kind of sort of, that's how when speaking to a lot of people, that's sort of their opinion of this sort of entitlement of like $400 and you're walking away from this opportunity to have, gainful employment, So just wonder what your thoughts
yeah,
are on that.
I think so again it comes back to whether you can afford it, thinking long term. But in terms of parents, I think I'm learning this myself as a parent because I can see the tendency to overprotect the child. I do it sometimes, because I can, so I overprotect them because you love your children.
Right.
But I'm constantly reminding yourself like our role as a parent is sort of prepare them for the real world. That's what they should be facing. And I'm trying to remind myself all the time that I shouldn't treat my daughters any different than how the outside world might treat them. In the sense of like making them mature and tough and like not cry and get everything that they want. It doesn't really quite work that way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to be nicer to them than the outside world, obviously, but
Of course,
just
of
to
course.
make
Yeah, of course.
but just to make the point of not overdoing it.
Yeah, yeah. I think big picture and critical thinking are things that they aren't taught in school. And that's something we can do as parents, because that's in essence what I'm hearing from you all throughout our conversation today is that it's big picture overall. What's important? What needs to be noticed? What do you need to convey? What do you need to think about when you're making decisions? And so that is something I don't believe they're taught at school. So, yeah.
Yes, that's right. No, I 100% agree. I've always sort of advocated for teaching critical thinking in school. I think that, if you teach this skill, then that's how you don't have to worry about their long term, because people automatically raise their standards all the time. They have this growth mindset. They question things that affect to them online, yeah, it's like a core fundamental skill that sort of like something like, instead of giving them a fish, you sort of teach them how to fish, right? Basically, you teach them how to think.
Oh,
And
Grandpa, you are so true, so right. I'm just
yeah,
kidding.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but no, I agree. I think it's very, very important skill to teach. So we can also teach it at home, considering that the school doesn't quite teach it. And I always believe that I'm quite idealistic in nature, which is why I started a startup. Startups have this idea, I'm going to change the world, I'm going to change this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good to be idealistic, but you operate in reality. So you have two things, right? You have this goal, this big goal, and everyone's trying to chase this goal. But in order to achieve the goal, you first need to understand how the world works, right? How jobs are, how employers are, what your boss is going to be like. And if you understand that and you can accept that, that helps you navigate, what the system is, if you like, in order to achieve that goal.
Naivety gets you in the door and takes you so far, and then the critical thinking and the big picture view and your sort of I guess ability to know you can figure stuff out is what takes you the distance, right?
That's right. And having that confidence and belief in yourself, right, that you can figure this out, helps you overcome challenges rather than feeling helpless, right, and that you can't do anything about it.